Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Positive Wrestling Podcast. I can't remember the last time we did one. I haven't been here, basically. I've been traveling the world like can I swear? I won't swear. Like a jackhole. That's what I call myself. I've been traveling the world like a jackhole. Plus, I did actually have a family situation that I had to sort last week as well. Don't want to get into it. All is fine. All is well. All is good. But, I mean, you would have noticed on the YouTube channel as well, there was no content for a week because, again, I had to run around and sorting stuff out. But we are back with my man Scott. Scott, how are we doing today?
I'm good, Simon. How are you? That's what I want to know. You know, you've had a week off. How are you?
I wouldn't call it a week off.
Yeah, a week on.
A week of not doing content. Yeah. No, I'm all good. I am, what's the word? I'm a bit intimidated by the schedule going forward for wrestling because we have Bad Blood tomorrow, which we're going to talk about today. Obviously, we're going to get into that. And then the week after that, we have Wrestle Dream. And then I believe we're pretty much at Saudi Arabia time by then, plus AEW will have another show. And then I'm pretty sure in 2025, we are going to have 6 hours of WWE TV and 6 hours of AEW TV a week. Because I'm convinced that Raw, all this conversation about Raw being, how long is Raw going to be on Netflix? I had this epiphany the other day. Of course it's going to be 3 hours. What do they want, understandably, more than anything? Adverts and sponsors. So let's have a lower running time and have less sponsors. It's not a conversation that any business has ever had. And with all the AEW stuff, two things are going to happen. Again, this is all speculative for me, but I think it's the same deal. You're going to definitely get 2 hours of Dynamite, 2 hours of Collision, and this Shockwave show, if it goes on to Fox, has to be 2 hours, right? Otherwise, why would they spend, it's got to be an A show. So even if you don't do that, I think Dynamite's going to be 3 hours eventually anyway. You can just feel it. You can feel it coming, and it's just too much content. But that's okay. That's all good. I do think, I don't want to spend too long on this because I think it's been done to death, although I would like your opinion, Scott. The new AEW TV deal is pretty cool. It's pretty awesome. It sets them up for the next 3 to 4 years, and I will always die on this hill. Wrestling is better with competition. Don't care who the competition is. I just want two major companies going at it. AEW's never going to touch WWE, but that's fine because they can touch them enough. And as a fan, that's all I need. Just sort of get in there and scratch and claw away. That's enough.
Yes, they can touch them enough. I like that. That should be on a t-shirt. Just enough,
Yeah.
I think it's brilliant. It's got to be good news. Whether you're, tribalism in wrestling, whether you're, die-hard WWE and you have to pull apart the attendance records of AEW, whatever it is, it's good. There's no one that can think it's bad because it's good for wrestlers, it's good for fans. If you look through the history, anytime there was competition, the content was better. So there's no real downside, in my opinion, other than people like you who have to cover this because you're sounding like Rodri from Man City. It's too many games.
Rodri's right, damn it. No, that's not true. Rodri is not right. I'm not going down that thing. Rodri needs to understand.
He needs to grow up.
I tell you what, if people want to pay me professional football player money, you'll never.
We'll make a video every morning.
Do you know what as well? I would never moan about it from that point of view. I've always said this, we've talked about it. I'm very blessed to do what I do. I think the problem with it is when you are watching everything, sometimes there's just some weeks where you're like, this is just way too much. It just is. It's just way too much content. And I will even say, maybe a controversial take, I didn't really like Dynamite 2.5 hours the other day. I didn't need a 30-minute overrun. I didn't get much from it. I just didn't. It's just the truth. Again, as I always say, it doesn't mean it was right or wrong. It just meant on Wednesday the 2nd or whatever it was, that's how my brain and my heart felt. They're like, not today. And I was like, okay, cool. You get that all the time. It's like the number one comment is, but Simon, 8 weeks ago, you said you liked something like this, and today you don't like it. I'm like, yeah, because it's a different day. I just want something different. Yeah, there's no consistency with that stuff, and there can't be when you have weekly television. And somebody just said here that I wanted to read out on the TikTok thing. Yeah, Jack says, wrestling tribalism drives me nuts because there's some of the levels that people go to. That's my problem. I'm happy. And also Hero says competition breeds improvement. Totally agree. But that is the problem, man. Go tribal. Tribals in football, tribals in movies in some ways, in music and all kinds of things. But it's the levels people go to. I'm so bored of people going, oh, suck on the teat of Triple H, suck on the teat of Tony Khan. So I've been doing this for 8 years and no contract or any money has turned up at my house. So it's not going very well. If I'm desperately trying to win their favor, it's been a total failure, which is sad. What are you going to do?
I think that's an interesting thought as well, because from a wrestler standpoint as well, we always think of I don't want to go on. I'm on Simon Miller's podcast. I don't want to say, oh, I thought Raw was really bad because Triple H is watching this, and therefore he'll never give me a job. When we've seen in the history of wrestling, you could actively try and put a company out of business and they'll hire you. Look at Shane McMahon might turn up in AEW. But it's funny that people think this kind of thing. I think Sam Roberts, Peter Rosenberg, they had the same issue. They were like, you're WWE shills, you're paid by WWE. And they were like, well, my bank account doesn't seem to think so, but if you do, oh well. And then in the end, they did actually get hired by WWE. But yeah, the idea, that it means anything is just mad. It's all just fun, But honestly,
that's the thing.
I don't know how you do what you do. I'm going to be honest. I love wrestling. I love wrestling to a point where it's my toxic trait. I would say that liking wrestling is my toxic trait. I can't watch, I'm not watching Collision. I mean, on my Sky Plus, Rampage and Collision, and I have no issue with them. It's just too much. I don't have enough time to do it. And I know you're having to find the time to do this. But Rampage and Collision, my wife will literally say to me, why is it on Series Link? Because I've never seen you watch one. I was like, I watch one here and there when I hear like a match is really good. I need to see
I think lots of people do that. Yeah.
But I very much delete them. And that isn't a problem. For example, I love NXT. I think NXT is a really fun product. But we don't get that in England anymore. So I haven't seen it, but I watch the pay-per-views. I kind of like this new thing that I do where I kind of catch up on it by watching the build-up packages. And I'm like, oh, that TV looks like it must have been quite good. And it's just enough, I watch Dynamite, SmackDown, Raw, and NXT pay-per-views. That's kind of good. That's a good amount. It's still probably too much. But happy. I'm happy in my little area, though.
And I think that's kind of ties into, you don't have to watch everything to be a fan. Pick and choose. Yeah. Some weeks you may not want to watch anything apart from clips on social media. And that's totally fine. Like, it really is. Like, people always say to me, what would I be watching or doing if I didn't do what I did do? I certainly wouldn't watch it, but I wouldn't be watching everything. I wouldn't watch all 3 hours of Raw. I would sit down and watch Raw, but I'd wind forward some bits. Yeah. Because that's just what you do when it's 3 hours. You would just go fast. Given that SmackDown's on a Saturday morning, I would probably catch up with it on chunks over the weekend. Yeah. I don't think I'd sit there for 2 hours and watch it. And same with Dynamite, I'd probably watch a little bit here, Collision a little bit there, just take it in as I would do anything else. But I like the fact that the industry is booming right now. That's the coolest thing. Yeah. And again, from here on out, we're going to get a lot of money going to wrestlers. And that's the most important thing. And also, the better the industry is, the better it is for fans. It's just true. Unless you want a front row ticket at WrestleMania, which is $50,000. Not so great.
Honestly, I've seen, we talked about it before, the gates. They get really excited about the gates. These tickets are crazy. I don't know who, but not to name names. I was talking to someone inside the WWE. You'll know exactly who I'm talking about. They were like, who's buying these tickets? Like, that's crazy prices. Like, they're just crazy prices. And I was like, I couldn't afford them. Like, if someone gave me one, I'd happily go. I was like, who can afford that? Like, you could buy a house in Detroit, probably.
you could. The thing is, though, that worth is an interesting thing, right? And what showed the Survivor Series. The Survivor Series Canada tickets, the minimum was like $350, right? Or something like $250. It was expensive. They sold it out. So you cannot have a go at WWE. No. They pitched that event perfectly. That's what worth is. If you don't sell out your seats, you've screwed it up. But so if people buy these 50,000 tickets, no one can say anything because they were pitched rightly. My favorite thing about that ticket was they said, they haven't announced it yet. They were like, there's going to be a perk. If you buy this $50,000, there's going to be a perk. Unless the perk is I'm in the main event of WrestleMania, it is not worth $50,000.
No. And I can tell you what the perk's going to be. It's going to be you meet Julius Creed. That's my guess. That will be the perk. I know it will be. And he might be a future main eventer and it'll be a really cool thing. But I'm just saying, I think that would probably be the perk.
I need The Rock. The Rock's got to walk in the room for $50,000.
He has to work out with me for an hour, and then he has to go for dinner, and then he has to meet my family, and I'll go.
I tell you what, for 50,000, I would right now, where I'd get it from, I don't know. We'd probably have to do a GoFundMe. I would spend $50,000 on a WrestleMania ticket, and nobody would want this because the rest of the fans would hate you. But the perk is I get to have a WrestleMania entrance. That's the perk. When it's full, none of this pre-show malarkey.
You
full,
want to show to us.
And I get to pick my theme, and somebody makes me a Tron, and I get to walk to my seat.
Yeah.
I would now, even with my current financial situation, again, do not have $50,000. I would figure out a way to do it because I think that would be absolutely amazing. That would be worth it. That's worth 50 grand.
I think it'd be worth 50 grand to see it. because the idea that the guys they're on the pre-show, they've got half an audience, but Simon Miller does a full entrance to his seat, and everyone's like ups and downs. They're giving it what? You're like,
can you imagine? But it wouldn't be that, though, would it? It would be like when Limp Bizkit plays in the middle of the show. People are like, "Oh, what is this? Boo! We won WrestleMania. Shut up! No one paid money for this." But it would be brilliant. But again, I just need to see how it sells, because you see, people get so mad. Oh, so listen, this is the worst thing I'll ever say. I'm going to cause a nightmare and a meltdown. I don't mean to, but that's why AEW probably does need to price their tickets a little bit less now to put people in the buildings, and then that would be awesome. And then you can change it. And it's the same with WWE. I want to make it very clear. Just at the moment, they do very good numbers. But if WWE decides, oh, Raw is now $200 a ticket, and Raw goes from 14 to 12 to 10 to 8, well, you've done it's a mistake. Stop it. Yeah. Because, I understand that you can sell less tickets to make more money if they're higher. But I'm looking at it again from a fan's point of view. I want buildings to be full. That was a cool thing about this week. Raw had a great crowd. Dynamite had a great crowd. NXT had a great crowd. It was awesome. All those three shows had a real buzz about it, I thought, because I think the smallest one was Dynamite, and they had like 4,500 people. That's the other thing. People always go, 4,500 people. That people have totally forgotten what that means. 4,500 people in a building is incredible. That's what Raw was doing like 10 years ago in the doldrums. So anyway.
Well, if you think about it, if you wanted 4,500 people to buy your merch or to listen to your podcast,
right?
They don't even have to leave their home. For example, with the podcast, they don't even have to pay. Do you know how hard it is to convince 4,500 people to do that? To get 4,500 people to buy overpriced tickets, get in their car, drive, or get transport, get there, deal with the tribalism in the crowd probably, and people taking pictures of empty seats, and then go through that whole thing. I mean, and then to do that week on, week out, twice a week. I mean, I think people are just so thrown. And again, we've talked about before, the difference between revisionist history. It's like people saying, oh, Emery's a good manager now. We had to go through Watford too. If you look at like WCW, it was 50,000 people in the Silverdome. It was all these things, Superdome. It was all I sound like I'm Hogan. I just got the wrong one.
Hogan, yeah.
They look at that and they go, oh, they don't fill these houses anymore. There's not 20,000 people for Monday Night Raw. I was like, yeah, because the world's different. We take in content differently. People save money differently. So the fact that they could do 4,500, even twice a week, WWE are doing 8,500, let's say, twice a week. Then, I think it's mad. It's bonkers. Impact to fill in places. New Japan are filling. The fact for something like so niche like wrestling to do this well, I think it's brilliant.
Well, I got told today, I liked the AEW TV deal, and I posted about this, and I got a response saying, well, you can't like it now because the AEW rating wasn't very good. And I was like, bro, do you watch shows and base your enjoyment depending on a number? Because you got problems. I just say it. You got an issue and you need to go get medical help. I'm just saying.
That whole premise is honestly, it's the strangest thing. It's like going, I really like this film. I went to see Twisters. It was really good. How many people went to see it? I don't know. I couldn't care less.
What was the box office? It didn't make its box. It didn't make its budget, but I don't like it now. Don't like it. Wrestling fans are insane.
Yeah.
Dan R says, do What Culture help pay for your tickets when you go to shows, Simon? Yes, they do. No, they do pay for my ticket. Yeah, that's only fair. They do take care of me. There's other stuff they don't. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm not going down that way. And Jack says, I don't see why you wouldn't want to see wrestling just succeed. I agree. And I'm not reading that question because it's offensive. Right, Bad Blood. Let's talk.
That's the problem with TikTok. I do this all the time. I start reading one. I'm like, stop reading that one.
Absolutely. We won't talk about that. Someone's got, man, that would have been so awesome people are talking. Oh, sweet. People in the comments now talking about shows they went to. Yeah, do that. Simon, what was it like going to All In both years? Yeah, it was awesome. One year was so far my All In record is 1 year I was an extra and then the other year I was in the front row. I mean, that's a pretty good double header.
Fingers crossed that I get the front row next year or whenever they're back.
Yeah, that's right. And I need to be in the ring. There we go. So we continually move one step closer.
We'll pay 50 grand and we'll do our own entrance. That's what we'll do.
There we go. That's what we'll do. There we go. We just pitched an idea. WWE and AEW. Me and Scott are ready to
go. We're ready to go.
Right, Bad Blood. There's so much to talk about now, which is actually I'm glad about because I've done my predictions already. You can check them out on the channel. We are going to go through that again. But the card has completely changed. Look, we don't know. It could change again. It's WWE. It's pro wrestling. The main event apparently is no longer Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. The main event is going to be the Bloodline versus Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes, because there's going to be some kind of big video and someone's going to return. Probably The Rock. We do not know. At the moment, it's been pitched to us as the big guy. So maybe it's Ryback, which would be the most disappointing return in the history of professional wrestling. Still blocked me on Twitter for no reason, because someone told him, oh, he's talking about you when I wasn't. We've told that story before. I'm massively intrigued because, understandably so, if I was CM Punk and Drew McIntyre, I would have a chip on my shoulder. Let's face it, the show was called Bad Blood because they always planned to do this Hell in a Cell. The Bad Blood is in reference to the feud between CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. I would guess probably as early as August, this was, I can't call it locked in, but at least penciled in. So to all of a sudden be usurped in the way that Punk was irked about back in 2011, there's a dramatic irony to it, to say the least. I'm also, and I understand why this would not happen based on egos and box office and star power, I would love a WWE that ends with a Hell in a Cell and The Rock pops up before that. I don't think that's the end of the world. I don't think that affects anything. In fact, if anything, it jazzes me up even more. I'm a little bit worried about CM Punk and Drew McIntyre opening the show, because if the rumor that's on the internet is true, it's Bayley versus Nia Jax in second. Now, listen, Bayley and Nia Jax, I'm big fans of both. But Drew McIntyre and CM Punk, from what I've seen, they're on a mission to turn Hell in a Cell back into the Hell in a Cell, what it should be, and not like Tonka toy stuff. So if they bleed everywhere and they kill each other, and then you have to move into a title feud, which is okay, but the build has been relatively mundane's a bit harsh, just kind of there, right? It's not like it set the world on fire or anything. As a difficult card, that's all I'll say. I'd always be tempted to put Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan there because they have story and they have heat, and so I don't know. So we'll do sort of two birds with one stone. Let me know what you think about the kind of the shuffling, and then how do you see CM Punk and Drew going? What's going to be the plan?
I definitely agree with you. I think the whole premise of ending a show with like a big thing, I've never fully got it, because you'll know with YouTube and things like that, by the end of the video, most people aren't watching.
Yeah, that's
so
also true.
I know in pay-per-views, when you're putting Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, who are very new, with Cody Rhodes and Roman, I guess because Roman's there, you're going to keep an audience and Cody. But I feel like if a Hell in a Cell with this feud was going still, people are going to tune in longer to see that than they would a potential.
I agree with you.
This, by the way, this might not even be The Rock. This might be a video of The Rock challenging.
Oh,
Cody
I think it is going to be a video of The Rock. Yeah, I think it's a video, for sure.
If that's the case, then I would have just started the pay-per-view with it. As soon as the graphic comes up, it cuts, then there's a video, and The Rock basically says, I'm facing Cody Rhodes at whatever he's doing. And then cut it. And then when Cody does his entrance, he's all like, well, what is going on? And they could tell a story in the first match.
I agree.
Even have Cody take a pin from Jacob, because he was so kind of flustered by what he got.
Oh my God, yeah. Do a Rock video interruption in the match. That's what they should do. That would be good. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I love the idea that we finally have a story that warrants a cell and not just a match that happens.
Vice versa, yeah.
And they brought back the silver cage, which is nostalgia and very happy. The silver Hell in a Cell is like ours with the blue steel cage, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's kind of like, there's going to be people that are probably like 25 going, oh, I remember when I was a kid, they used to do this. And it's like, we're old. But I'm so glad they were doing it. And I feel like both of them are very much the type of wrestlers you don't, in a good way and a bad way, don't want to annoy. They're very chip on the shoulder, going to prove a point. This is either going to work really well because they're going to give us one of the best matches that people can't follow. Or you're making two people unhappy because they're going, no matter how hard we do everything and how well we execute, we're still not going to headline because you're going to just bring The Rock out to do a whatever. So it's 50-50 how it's going to go. But either way, I'm still looking forward to the match. And
me too. I can't wait.
Yeah, and could you imagine? We could be getting Hell in a Cell first. We could have Tiffany cashing in on Nia second. We could have Judgment Day back-to-back matches that are already hot as anything. And then you got the main event with Cody and Roman that might have The Rock at the end. Could be an all-timer pay-per-view.
Yeah, especially for a quote-unquote B pay-per-view, for sure. Like, you know what I mean? They have turned those B pay-per-views around. Which is why, again, just on a side note, Elimination Chamber apparently is coming here in 2025 in March, which is cool to the UK. Although my mate said, I told my mate who's a casual fan, he goes, I don't want the Elimination Chamber. You're better off watching that at home. I won't be able to see anything live. I was like, that's a great point. It's a very, very good point. But I still think it's cool. No, I totally agree. I think it's going to... Listen, WWE have... I understand... I'm not saying I don't understand putting The Rock last. He's the biggest star they have by a country mile because he's a proper worldwide star. Sometimes it would be nice, much as we did with WrestleMania 41, would be to let the wrestling be the star. And if you let the wrestling be the star for Bad Blood, you finish with CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre, they've earned that spot. But hey-ho, man, as long as everyone's on the same page and they are professionals, like you say, I think you could actually have you could have at least a really good open and a really good closer, depending on what you do in the other ones. And I presume that CM Punk's going to win, just because he's talked about Gunther, he's talked about the World Championship. I kind of want Drew to win just because I think it would be funny, but that's not really... WWE right now is good because they stick to what makes sense. And CM Punk, the babyface, winning. I think that Drew McIntyre has to kill him. Like, I think Drew McIntyre really has to put... It has to be a bit of almost a Shawn Michaels Undertaker 97 in reverse. Yeah. In the sense that ended with Shawn Michaels sort of crawling over and Shawn Michaels was the bad guy. I need CM Punk crawling over, but he's the good guy, obviously. So I would take very many elements from that. And... yeah, I think you want to pitch it. Do you know what? You want to kind of pitch it like the 3 stages from hell they did between Triple H and Steve Austin, where by the end you just have Jim Ross going, I mean, who really won? Do you remember Triple H fell on Steve Austin to win? Yeah. That's how I don't think you need a fall or anything like that. I think CM Punk can be in control of his facilities. But I really do think you need to sell it like Hell in a Cell, oh my gosh, terrible, awful place, don't want to be in it. Sure, CM Punk got a 1, 2, 3, but Drew, that's what you need. Yeah. Both guys need to come out of here with really good stories and just feeling like badasses. You cannot, that's more important than who actually gets a W and an L, I think. Yeah,
I think if that was the case, and then on Raw, Drew McIntyre comes out all bandaged up and says, I might have lost, but I took my chunk of flesh that I promised.
That's right. Yeah.
He's never going to be the same, and under my watch, he'll never win that world title, but then kind of ease him into the next thing. Yeah. He's kind of had his say. He had the last word, but he didn't win the match. Whereas the babyface won, found a way. But he will also carry whatever he did in his storyline for the rest of his kind of WWE tenure, CM Punk. Because I think this will be the biggest story he does the whole time he's there, and it's kind of happened through happenstance. I mean, both of them are. I think when they're done, they'll probably say that was the story. So I'm glad we've had a story. It's been years since we've had, a 3 pay-per-view stint with a bit of build, and it leads to a sell or somewhere like a blow-off, like an old-school blow-off. And it's been good. It's been really good. It's up there with Hangman and Swerve as the best stories that we've had in wrestling this year. So, I don't know. I'm just really happy with it. And again, WWE has moved. When we grew up, it was, I want to go to WWE so I could be on WrestleMania. Every pay-per-view's in a stadium now. So it doesn't have to be WrestleMania. WrestleMania, that's why they leave guys off WrestleMania, but they put them on Clash at the Castle or whatever they want, Boomtown Rats or whatever they want to call it. You know what I mean? But, they're like, but you got a stadium. It's like, yeah, but it wasn't WrestleMania. That's kind of going. And it's the same with Bronson and Braun. I thought that story's been really fun. I think it was you that said it. The origination of it should have been Peter Griffin and the chicken from Family Guy. And they never stopped actually beating each other up. But I love the idea that was a main event of Raw. They got to main event Raw. And people would say, oh, it wasn't Bad Blood. And it's like, it's in front of the same amount of people. And probably more
people see it on TV. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's kind of changing a bit, which is making it a lot easier for WWE to distribute more stories across the board. Because, this pay-per-view's got how many people in the actual show? Like 12?
It's 5 matches, isn't it? Yeah. It's just 5 matches, yeah.
So, 12 people in a match. So, I've heard of these pay-per-views that have had literally crews of wrestlers of about 16 because you might have a couple extra Judgment Day members and that. 16 guys sat backstage. I've been on shows with more people backstage than are out there. So, to be, on a show with 16 people, catering must be so fun. It must be so relaxed. You can actually kind of get involved because, before we were doing house shows going into these, so people on the road already and they just came along. Whereas now this is a one-off flight to Atlanta, do the show, fly to Raw. Everyone else is just flying from Orlando to Raw. So it must be really surreal kind of how, small.
It's totally changed. The 5 match pay-per-views have become a talking point, right? I do think you could have put Gunther versus Sami Zayn on this just because I think that creates more intrigue The fact they're doing it on Raw just says to me that Sami Zayn's not going to win. But sometimes, again, I'm repeating myself, it's not about wins and losses. Well, what happens at the finish? How does that tie into the next story? All these little bits and bobs. Maybe there's a reason we have to hold it off to Raw, because it's going to tie into something that happens at Bad Blood. I don't know. All I know is that these pay-per-views have been clocking in at just under 3 hours, and that's a huge plus in my books.
And UK also, time, 11 o'clock start, by the way.
I know, because of the UFC show, right? They've gone early. It's the good old UFC. Good work, UFC. But my thing is that, let's say we put Braun Strowman versus Bronson Reed on this show. What difference does it make to me? It doesn't make any difference to me. I've got the network, and then Netflix next year. I'm not paying any extra money. I watched Raw on Monday. I think it had 12,000 people on Monday going crazy. They got 16,000 people on Saturday. So it's not like it's bigger, but I've got no problem with it whatsoever. I don't think now it feels like you've been left off a pay-per-view.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's more like, well, what story are you in? What story are you in right now? Like, I think it would be good if the women's tag team titles got defended on a pay-per-view, but I think there's work to be done with those championships. I think you have to resell them to the audience. Yeah. Whereas the IC belt and the US belt right now actually have that allure once again. So you can, but again, that's different. That's a different conversation. So no, I like it. And also, when you have a match as big as CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre, so it's going to overshadow anything, even the main event. If let's say The Rock is not there, and let's say even if Roman accidentally spears Cody and Jacob gets the win, let's say that's the finish, no Rock, no nothing, that's how the pay-per-view ends, Drew and CM Punk will still probably overshadow it if they have the match that we expect. Because that's got the worth put into it. And the Cody Roman stuff in terms of them being on the same team has only just began. That's just how it works. So yeah, I don't mind people not being on shows. I mind for them if they want to be on, but I don't mind from a fan point of view. Let WWE pick and choose who they deem to be important this month. And it does feel kind of balanced to me. Like, it really does. Like, I think like they seem to do it well, I think.
I think so. I think as well, it's that UFC model, isn't it, of the 5 matches and millions of kind of highlight packages in between. I could do with less
of those, but that's 2024. What are you going to do?
Exactly. Right? And also, when you look at UFC, the way they've done it now is I'm not as intent on UFC as I was like 10 years ago, because before it was like a pay-per-view once a month. Other than that, you'd watch some YouTube clips or whatever and Ultimate Fighter or whatever. Whereas now they have fight nights nearly every single week. But to sell those fight nights, they'll put a guy that you think, oh, he could co-main a UFC. And they'll put him in the main event and give him that main event slot at a fight night, which gets people to actually watch fight night. So, for example, Raw 2 weeks ago, we're giving you Jay versus Braun. That could easily be on Bad Blood, but we'll give it you 2 this week. So it's worth watching. Yeah. Next week, Braun and Braun. Next week, Sammy and Gunther. But in the middle, there's a pay-per-view that's sold by, The Rock, Roman, Cody, Drew, and Punk. That's your UFC. That's your pay-per-view. But the others you have to watch because you kind of want to see how the IC title went. And they're draws enough that can carry a whole show on their own. And I think that they're doing it. It's the equivalent of like a football manager playing, for us, Arsenal. Saka plays in a Carling Cup. And you're like, that's weird. It's like, but he'll carry the team through to a win. You don't have a clue who the others are, but you know him. And then when it comes to a weekend, all 11, you know them all. And then you're like, oh, okay. And then it goes back to, building it. And it just builds stars, gives people opportunity to main event.
It's just a different world. And I think it's probably a better world. I think it's more balanced, which I think is important. Shout out to Kyrina, who says, I think more effort needs to be put into the women's titles in general, but that can cross into a long rant. I mean, definitely with the women's championships. Actually, I probably agree with you. I disagree with Rhea and Liv, which we'll talk about in 1 minute. I think that's been really good stuff. And I think Nia Jax and Bayley. I think that's probably fair. I think there's probably we could be doing more of that. Let's just talk about that now. Let's talk about Nia Jax and Bayley, because apparently that will be match 2. I mean, the only problem I have that's not a problem. The only thing that's existing with this is because the story is more between Naomi and Bayley and Nia Jax and Tiffany. Like, I would be it shouldn't happen. It would be. I love Bayley, man. We talked about it. She's underused. She's underutilized. She's underrated. But it would be silly for her to win the championship because it just wouldn't work. You'd be like, oh, that's interesting, as opposed to, oh, I'm so happy. Like WrestleMania, right? When she won it, beat Io Sky, brilliant, so happy. So, I just think Nia Jax sort of kind of has to win. And I'm sure Tiffany Stratton's going to do something with the briefcase. I don't think she cashes in properly. You could do the Naomi heel turn there if that is what we're going to do. Again, strongly teased. I don't know. I would probably bet a limb that Nia Jax was going to win this match, because I just do not see them doing anything else, which is why it's so bizarre coming after CM Punk and Drew, because I think maybe you want something with a little bit more, which way is it going to go? But I think it's been fine. That's the main thing. I enjoy it on SmackDown. I'm not going out my way to tell people to watch it. It's just been okay.
Yeah, and I think the story is, like you said, Naomi and Bailey and Tiffany and Nia. And I mean, Nia grabbed Tiffany by the throat this week. So, I mean, they're getting close to some kind of implosion. And if you remember, we were doing, I don't know, it was Bash in Berlin. I don't know how long ago that was. We were doing that on the podcast. And we were talking about, is she going to cash in? And that's the dissension. So we've got another couple months in. So maybe it is time for the actual cash in. I'm not sure. But the story's been, you know, it's okay. Bailey deserves more. I think they all deserve a bit more. But I mean, the real story here is, I think, Tiffany's coming of age moment.
Yeah.
And I think Tiffany's super talented as well. And shout out to obviously Pretty Deadly, who have helped carry the story, right?
Where they just gone? Where's my musical? I got a tease of a musical and then nothing. I was very excited about this.
Scoops from Sean Rossap is Elton Prince just had a child. So
that's true. I did hear this. Yeah.
Maybe they'll be back on the SmackDown tonight.
I hope so. I want that. Because I just think if you are going to, I feel like this is a sum of its parts feud. So you need Tiffany Stratton with the Money in the Bank. You need Naomi teasing, and you need the weirdness of Pretty Deadly just hanging out playing Nintendo.
Yeah, we do.
It does add to it. It just does add to it. It just does. But yeah, I think. I don't know, what do? You think Naomi does the whole accidental but not really, tries to get involved and screws over Bailey? I do. So she won't go heel, but she'll be like, oh, I didn't mean to do it. And then in 6 weeks, I did mean to do it. I think that's what we're going to do.
It's got to be something like that. Because again, and it also, if Tiffany is going to even tease it, we need to get her out.
Naomi has to come out. Naomi has to come out there to stop it. Yeah.
Exactly. And there's also these other things like, you know, if they're going to do a proper cash-in, they want her music to hit because that's the pop. Whereas, you know, let's say Naomi comes out to even the score because Tiffany's out there. Naomi costs Bailey. Then as a schmoz, Nia Jax gets hit with something because that's the tough part. How? And then Tiffany kind of clears house, turns around, realizes she's on the floor, and then maybe the crowd go there. I don't know. I don't know how you hurt Nia enough to make Tiffany win that. Because unless Naomi turns heel on Bailey, hits her with a belt or tries to and knocks out Nia or something.
I think you got to tease it more. I think we've kind of started on SmackDown. Yeah, I don't think that's what they do. I actually think Bailey versus Naomi could be a WrestleMania match. That's how long term I think they could be thinking.
Yeah.
And if they do, can we make it like Drew and CM Punk? Can we let them go in proper and turn it in? Because like Naomi she's the same as Bailey. Sometimes does not get what she probably should get. So let's give them everything and let them turn it. Screw belts, don't need it. Throw a championship to the side for now. Yeah. Let's turn it into a proper blood feud. Friends are now enemies. Well, Drew and Punk are never friends, but you know what I mean. Like I would love for them to do that. But we're agreed. Nia Jax, right? Nia Jax is going to win this. Probably hands down. Right, good. I'm glad we're on the same page. What did I just see? I saw Lie Cheat Still says, why bring Naomi back and not put the belt on her? Well, that's just wrestling, dude. Like, not everyone can have the belt. I don't mind people having championships. Just put them in decent positions. And Lloyd Adventure says, not a question, just to say, it's so great to hear such a positive voice in the wrestling community. Damn right. Positive Wrestling Podcast. That's the whole point.
The PWP. That's what they call it.
PWP. Finn Balor versus Damian Priest. I am convinced that Damian Priest is going to win this as well, because I don't see the point of Finn Balor winning. Not in a bad way. Yeah. Finn Balor, to me, is the most, I use the word again, if we're talking about important, impactful performers that do not get their due or underrated, I think Finn Balor is number one. People totally forget about all the stuff Finn Balor did. The style he worked, going off to Japan and being that guy before, well, other people were, but he was like one of three who was going out there and going, by the way, we can all do this. You do realize. And also all the stuff with the Demon and the Joker and everything he used to dress up as. Do you know what I mean? And going through the NXT system. Oh, man. Finn Balor is like the number one guy. And people do not give him they do not put respect on his name at all. Was that your dogs?
That was it was one.
I thought it was. Yeah.
That was really interesting. That was a loud part.
It was, even I heard that.
And I was like, ooh. That's my bigger dog, guys. Very 20-second side bar. Joe's in Orlando seeing the Pretty Deadly Boys, and I'm looking after 1,000 dogs. And so if it sounds like I'm out of kennels, it's because I kind of am. My house has become a kennel. So I apologize for that, and I don't want Simon to have to edit out loads of stuff.
No,
so
I'm going to leave it in. I'm leaving the dog barks in.
Someone's got to hold it in. This is good.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
no, we're all good. What do you reckon we were talking about? Finn Balor.
Finn Balor, absolutely. The dog demon.
The dog. You're right. He's one of these guys that I think, Jeff Hardy does get his flowers, but someone who just revolutionized kind of not just wrestling, but like the way wrestlers work, the way they dress.
Yep.
The way they do business. He is in that, but he just doesn't get the flowers of a Jeff. Or like AJ, for example. And I think to an extent, AJ still doesn't get enough flowers, but
also agree.
Finn is just definitely under the radar, and he's not. I don't feel this way, but I know people say online Shinsuke phones it in a little bit. He kind of went to America and went, do you know what? Getting paid, gonna stay paid, just gonna enjoy myself. I've done very hard work. He doesn't. Finn is still going hard. I mean, he went babyface, demon, IC title, got hurt, all that kind of stuff. Then went back to NXT and was like the best version we've ever seen. Then came back and then was a part of probably one of the best new factions we've had in forever, like other than like the Bloodline rivaling NWO and DX kind of heights. But I mean, that next level, Los Barriquos kind of level, I mean, this is as good as it gets.
It's true.
I tell you what, I've noticed, someone online put it, have you noticed JD McDonough is starting to now look at Dominic and Liv in a certain way and avoid him? And
I certainly have. I know. What's that about?
Yeah, there's something going on there. And I think I couldn't even hesitate to figure. I don't have a clue where they're going with that. Because I think there is a Finn Liv thing going on. And JD's with Finn, majority. And because the whole story's been Liv and Finn underneath everyone's nose, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Dom doesn't know, but surely they're not turning Dom babyface. Or are
That'd
they?
be the worst idea ever. No, it's too early. If anything, I want Dominic to do a third heel turn. That's what I want Dominic to do.
He said
want him to do it again.
He's a heel that turned heel.
Yeah, do it again. I want a third heel turn. No, it is very interesting. There's definitely a story going on there. Well, you have to break them up properly eventually, so maybe you may as well plant the seeds now. But I just think, listen, Finn Balor is great, but I think Damian Priest has to win. He only lost his championship at SummerSlam due to Finn Balor. I understand if Finn Balor did win because the Judgment Day screwed Damian Priest over again, but I actually think Damian Priest just needs to win. Get his revenge. There's not really much more you can do with all of this. And then on Raw, he could probably have a match with JD, have a match with Carlito, have a match with Dominic eventually. I mean, they already did that, essentially. But I just think Damian Priest needs to win. Like, Damian Priest has found his momentum in 2024, and the best way to keep that up is just he can beat all of them up. That's the cool thing about Damian Priest. So far, he's just been ragdolling everyone, and it works for me anyway because I just really like Damian Priest. Again, the question is, what does Damian Priest do coming out of this? I don't really know, but there's enough bodies that you can you can fit him into somewhere. But this is what I mean about this card. Look, I could be wrong. They could completely surprise me. But this is why I think the Hell in the Cell should be at the end. I think we have a couple of matches here that are relatively obvious. And again, obvious isn't bad, but it just means you can sit back and be prepared as opposed to on tenterhooks going, oh, what's going to happen? But I still think it'd be really good because these two guys are really good and they're friends, which always helps.
Yeah, exactly. I think it'd be a really good match. It's hard, isn't it? Because like you said, this whole pay-per-view feels very much like the full stop in a lot of stories. The kind of like, where does Drew go next? We kind of think Punk's going towards Gunther. I think Sammy, for example, I know this is separate about Bad Blood, but he did a backstage this week where I think it was Seth or someone was in the background in the shadow. So, they're setting up the start of other things. But I mean, I couldn't tell you where Drew's going. I couldn't tell you where Damien's going. Hopefully Finn and JD are going to defend the titles for a second time in 6 months soon. So, Finn, they could filter back into there. It feels like a lot of things are kind of coming to an end. Surely Solo can't keep facing Cody Rhodes. I know the Bloodline story's still going to continue. But I don't know, it just feels like a full stop. And I don't really know where it's going. So therefore, you're kind of assuming the babyfaces win out. But there has to be a couple... ebbs and flows, if that makes sense. I don't know.
That's why I think Liv Morgan's going to retain. Jumping to that one, that's the whole reason I think Liv Morgan's going to retain, because exactly what you just said. Because it leaves the door open. Rhea Ripley could not win that belt to Survivor Series. That's totally fine. Survivor Series is like, a month after this, 6 weeks after this. And then I am perfectly happy watching Liv, Dom, and Rhea continue on for another month. I find them very entertaining. Yeah. I think they're great. And again, Dom's in the shark cage. Well, I actually think two things. I got two predictions. Well, one, I think is pretty much a spoiler. Dominic will throw something from the shark cage, right? A weapon. it happens every time. The bad guy, oh, I have a weapon up here. How did that happen? He throws it down. That's probably how they're going to win. Or if she's good to go, I would bring, I think, if Judgment Day aren't breaking up anytime soon and we want to continue all of this stuff, I think it needs somebody else being shoved in there. If Raquel Rodriguez is good to come back, I would bring Raquel Rodriguez back and I'd team her up with Liv Morgan, right? They used to be a tag team. Raquel has always said that's the only person that didn't screw her over when it came to within story. When it came to the tag team, I always thought she'd be better as a bad guy because she's massive and she's all jacked and stuff. I don't want to see her smiling and flexing her back. I want to see her kicking people's ass. That's what I want because she looks like a badass. And I just think that dynamic would be really good. Especially because Raquel and Liv can completely dominate Dominic. He can just be like this little rat in the background.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know whether that's... And also, I don't mind Rhea Ripley versus Raquel Rodriguez at a pay-per-view, maybe even WrestleMania with the championship on the line, because that is just two big behemoths smashing into each other. Yeah. And we don't get enough of that women's division. And as Braun Strowman and Bronson Reed have just shown us, that could be the greatest thing you ever do on a wrestling show. So if Raquel Rodriguez is over her health, and of course the health is the most important thing, but if she is good to go, bring her back. Put her in that. Yeah, and then you have and I think Liv Morgan having a proper heater, like, you know, almost like a Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash Diesel thing, I think would work really well for those characters. So I'm a real advocate of keeping the belt on Liv right now because I think her and Dominic are doing great work and Rhea Ripley's over regardless. It won't make a difference if she doesn't win the championship here as long as she gets screwed over. That's what you need to do. This can be the screwed over match.
Yeah, and is the next pay-per-view in Saudi? Is that correct?
Yeah, sweet. About a month after, yeah.
I wonder if they're going to do an intergender match there just because that's the, I don't know politically where to put it, but I mean, the next step in their kind of, the women weren't on the show, then the women were on the show, then they put multiple women on the show. Is the next thing intergender? They're not obviously going to get physical, but having that combination is good for the, I don't know, the publicity of the country or whatever. They seem to do things every show. So I wonder if Damien, like Terra Twins versus Liv and Dom happens in Saudi.
It's November 2nd, so it's literally 3 weeks.
Wow.
We get literally 3 weeks kind of 4 weeks this weekend. So it's really tight turnaround. Yeah.
And that's got to be a couple weeks before Survivor Series. That's usually Thanksgiving week, isn't it? Which is like 25th.
I'm going to check. Hang on.
Well, I think it's usually Thanksgiving week, which is usually the last week of November.
Yeah. So it's the last day of November. So you got Crown Jewel on the 2nd, and then the last Saturday, of the 30th is you've got Survivor Series. So essentially, we've got a month and then 3 weeks, and then we're done with pay-per-views for the year for WWE. Yeah.
That's mad, isn't it? Because they'd like to do like day one in January or something, and then
I don't know,
Rumble's now February.
And I know. At the moment, they've got nothing for January, nothing in there. Well, I guess Netflix is going to kind of serve as a pay-per-view match. But do you have Liv Morgan winning then still? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm with you so far. It's the Punk, Nia, Liv. And I think Nia and Liv are the kind of heel moments that kind of sit either side of Punk ending as a babyface, Damien ending it as a babyface. And that leaves us with the tag team main event with a video package involved.
I want to read out Karina's message as well because this made me laugh. It will not be proper intergender match because of cowardice. I love
she's
that.
Not wrong.
What a great. Well, she's not. I love cowardice is such an underused word. I do kind of get it because it's about optics. Like I had an intergender match the other day in Chicago. I had the best time of my life. I told you about it. We sold it like. I mean, I listen. I love Shaz. Shout out to Shazza McKenzie. I must have been 10 times her size, but we sold it like she was bigger and stronger than me. I had a great time. I had no tool. She kneed me in the face really hard. It was brilliant. But I get why WWE doesn't do it because they think it's going to be taken out of context as man beats up woman, which is unfortunately the world that we live in. That's what people do. But I do understand it. I would like to see a proper intergender match. I still remember when Baron Corbin gave the end of days to Becky Lynch. Yeah. That was a bad feud, the whole Lacey Evans stuff, but that place went nuts. Yeah. They couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe it, right? Like, it works. Yes, so we get to our Mega Powers main event, Cody and Roman versus the Bloodline. I don't know. I think it's a really cool match because Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes, I think people are underselling how awesome it is that they are teaming together. This is the kind of thing we want to see, right? Put all these in. I've got this bizarre thing now that we're going to get to Saudi Arabia. It's mostly because I'm being led by stupid rumors on the internet, but it kind of makes sense to my brain that maybe we are going to do Cody versus Roman in Saudi Arabia. because I don't see what else they can do. And it's because they fall out here or whatever's going to happen. And The Rock pops up on screen. I run this company. You're going to do this, Roman, to make up for teaming with this guy who we hate. What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And then, look, Jimmy Uso could return here. Paul Heyman could return here. There's another rumor going around that Jimmy Uso actually has been a bit delayed with his comebacks. And now WWE are pivoting, hence why we could do Roman versus Cody at Saudi. And that the bloodline stuff in terms of the Civil War will be delayed, because we can't get Jimmy Uso back in time. And of course, we don't know. This is all speculation. But if anything is going on with Jimmy Uso, I don't care about wrestling. Just get better. It's pointless. It doesn't matter. Your health is everything. But I do think it's opened the door for all of this. And going back to our point earlier, if The Rock is technically, quote unquote, coming back at Bad Blood, there is no way, if we had known this since July, he would be sending in a video. He just wouldn't. He would be there live, which is why I think it's all very last minute. I think we've got another WrestleMania 40 pivot here, and we're like, okay, we can't do what we wanted to do. We need to shove some things in place. The Rock can't make it to Atlanta, Georgia, because he's the most busy man on the planet. What do? We can do a video via satellite, and I don't know. But when does it air? When does it not air? Can you really have the bloodline lose? Even if Jacob Fatu doesn't get pinned, do you want him on the losing side of a team? Does that end solo? Are you going to pin Roman? Can you pin Cody? Do you know what I mean? It's a very interesting match in terms of directions. But if I was really pushed, I think Roman accidentally spears Cody Rhodes and Cody gets pinned, probably by Jacob, would be my guess. Although, if you go with the betting odds, they say the opposite. They say the Mega Powers 2024 are winning by quite a large margin. So, I don't know.
I feel very 50-50. I think the finish is definitely crossroads on Solo. And then as it hits one and Jacob tries to break it up, he hits a spear to stop him breaking it up. A la kind of Bray and Roman did it on that Raw once with the really cool like point thing. Yeah, so cool. They do something like that and then they stare off. Then the video package basically goes, you two are against each other at Saudi Arabia, and then they stare at each other and we all go, oh wow, what a match. That is the obvious the obvious one. The less obvious one is, you got to remember KO's involvement in all this story is kind of becoming the cooler, funner story. They're very much saying he's going to turn and Randy's trying to play peacekeeper, but I think Randy is the problem in this whole thing.
I agree. It's a trick.
Yeah, and I think maybe KO comes out. He tries to get involved because maybe the Bloodline are involved or whatever, the Tonga twins, with the eye patch. And then Randy comes out. He's trying to help. He's trying to calm Cody down. He hits him with an RKO as the chaos is happening, and Jacob, or Solo even, crawls over and pins him. And then you set up, therefore, Solo has pinned the champ or Jacob. Randy did the thing that cost him, so therefore Randy's match is looming. And then The Rock finishes it with Cody all beaten up in the corner, and he's saying, "You're now going to face me at Saudi." And because we haven't had Rock in Saudi.
The Rock. No, I can't. No way.
Big money. And then because I could see him winning the title there. He's holding. I was about to say Mustafa Ali, Muhammad Ali's title. He's holding
Mustafa Ali's title. And it's like, wait, why has he got Mustafa Ali's title? What happened?
He's gone and won that some other time as well. He's got both of them, and it heads towards Survivor Series is headlined by War Games with no WWE title on the show. Like you said, The Rock won't do it. And maybe that's how they do it. And Cody has to fight through the bloodline to get back to The Rock at Mania time. But Roman comes and just gets in the way.
It's quite good. I quite like it.
I don't mind
I like the idea of Cody being on the chase again. I think that's quite nice. Yeah, I think it's quite nice. Yeah, I don't mind it at all. I think it's quite good. I quite like it. So someone put this man in the chair. I think... So my big question... So first of all, I agree with you with Kevin Owens. I think it was made, well, for me, in a good way, it was made clear when Randy Orton was like, I'll talk to Kevin Owens and tell him we want whoever it was coming out. It's like, you ain't telling him anything. You ain't going to tell him shib, which I enjoyed very much. And also, I think that's just such a better story. And Kevin, I think if you sat down with Kevin Owens and Randy Orton, who have done everything, and said, Kevin, we're going to go tease, and actually it's Randy that turns, I think they'll be sat there with Cheshire Crackins. They're probably their idea. And I bet Cody had massive influence as well. So the interesting part of what you just said is, what does Roman do at WrestleMania? Because everyone keeps going, he's going to face Jacob Fatu. Listen, I love Jacob Fatu. I don't think WWE thinks that's a WrestleMania match right now, because I think that they want Roman Reigns in the main event constantly, which I get because he's a super duper whooper megastar. So I've all of a sudden got to this point where I'm like, maybe they are going to do a triple threat match. Maybe it's going to be The Rock versus Cody versus Roman. I don't know. But with what you've just suggested, that makes it way more interesting. Although the only problem with that is that Cody would then need to win the Royal Rumble again. You can't have him win the Royal Rumble 3 years in a row.
Well,
Even that's a little bit dangerous.
Maybe Roman wins it, and then the Chamber in the UK.
Oh, Cody wins that.
Cody wins the Chamber, but the 5 others in it are all Bloodline members. So it's just chaos. In some capacity, and he has to fight for it. He fights for it. They both got the title shot, and The Rock, at this point, he's TKO owner, or whatever he is, and he's holding Mustafa Ali, Muhammad Ali. He's got his belt, and he's going, well, what title are you going for? And then they both say yours, and then it's Rock and Roman night 1, and Cody and the winner or whatever night 2.
Maybe, yeah. And then Mustafa Ali turns up.
Yeah,
give me my belt back.
Cashes in and gives him, give me all the belts. Yeah, I don't know. And in amongst all that, like I said, Cody kind of has to go through War Games. But maybe Cody's not involved in War Games because he goes into the Randy story and kind of
well, that's the other
away.
thing.
Yeah.
What if the main event of night 1 is Cody versus Randy? And we are just going to do Roman versus Rock on night 2. I don't know. I mean, I think what's going to happen, I think The Rock is winning the Royal Rumble. This is what I've convinced myself of now. I think The Rock pops up on Bad Blood and says, Roman, you disgusting cousin, you now have to fight Cody to prove your honor to the bloodline in Saudi Arabia. What happens in Saudi Arabia, I have no idea. I would not be able to call that match. I'm going to have a meltdown trying to call that thing. And then, you probably do Bloodline Civil War. And then The Rock comes back, reveals that he's behind 2.0. That's how Jacob and the Tongans got in. And I'm pretty confident The Rock is winning the Royal Rumble. I just am. Because if he's going to lose at WrestleMania to Cody, who would still have the championship, I don't think, in my scenario, The Rock hasn't won the championship, I would imagine he would want something.
Yeah.
And also, it's the first pay-per-view on Netflix, not in the US, but everywhere else. And I think The Rock is very much someone who is like, of course, the USA is our most important market. However, it's Netflix. Maybe we can get more subscriptions. Who knows? What? He's a record kind of a guy. But I don't know. And this is why I do find it quite interesting. There's many ways that they can go with it. And The Rock all of a sudden sticking his oar back in now, which was way sooner than I expected. You're right. It could open up your scenario. It could open up for him doing something in Saudi Arabia. Maybe he's involved in Survivor Series. I don't know. And also then John Cena is coming back too. Let's not forget.
Oh, God, yeah.
Although actually that works out. Maybe you can do... Roman Reigns is the outlier here because you can do John Cena versus Gunther for the World Championship at WrestleMania. I think that's pretty good because Gunther's style will match up to John Cena perfectly, and you can have John Cena win. I don't think he would do, but you could do, and I wouldn't have a problem with that. I'd be perfectly fine with John Cena getting that win. But because John Cena is John Cena, he doesn't actually need to be in the main event slot on either night. And that can leave it open for all these other crazy people. Of course, the other issue is poor CM Punk and Seth Rollins. They've lost their WrestleMania main event is my worry. I don't see how they can get it back. The card is just too big. Yeah,
especially this era of the Bloodline is they're not just doing 2 nights of Mania, they're headlining both nights now. So even the women aren't headlining, and I mean Rhea should definitely be headlining Manias at this point. But again, like we said earlier, they've kind of changed it because they might go, Rhea, you're going to headline Elimination Chamber in Manchester, or you're going to headline the Indianapolis Rumble. I don't know, whatever. Is that in Indianapolis? I think it is.
It is, yeah. Also, don't forget SummerSlam is now 2 nights from next year as well. So that opens up another door for big matches.
Yeah, and I think Saudi, they do see as a massive market in the sense that they're getting paid a lot. If they go, do you know what, we're going to give you, they're going to give you Cody and LA Knight championship for championship, and there's a double DQ or something because Roman gets involved. Saudi are going to start getting a bit wise to this and being like, why are we not getting Roman and, blah, blah, blah. But I really could see a title switch in Saudi, but I don't know how we get there with a video package. Because all I can see is he's going to show him what he gave him at Mania. And I know a lot of people think it's a lighter because he set fire to his bus. I don't think that's...
Right. If it's a lighter, do you know how annoyed I'm going to be? Scott, imagine your house burnt down and you didn't know who burnt it down. And then in a ring in front of thousands of people, I gave you a lighter and you responded with an No, you would kill me. You would try and kill me. You burnt my house down. The reaction was wrong. I love Cody. He's one of my favorite wrestlers. Yeah. But if that is the case, the reaction was totally wrong. It just was.
What if it's like something from the bus? And Cody at the time was like, that's random. He has that thing.
That's better. Yeah,
and
that's
then
fine.
In this video package, he says, do you remember what I gave you? And then he holds up like the other half or something. He said, that's right. I was in your bus that night or something like that.
That's fine.
It seems still a bit like...
But that's more ambiguous. Yeah, exactly. As opposed to, oh, there's a dead person and I give you a gun. And you're just meant to be like, oh, what does this mean? What do you mean, what does this mean? It's a gun.
Yeah. And WWE put that footage, didn't they, of Cody talking to Trips that they added to the documentary this week. I think where he says, before you guys freak out, my bus burnt down last night. And they added that to the doc that was already made. So it's a bit like, you know.
Have we seen photos of that bus on fire?
In that video, they showed, and it's basically, there's like a square hole on the roof where the air conditioning thing set light. But in the video, he does kind of explain why it happened, and it's not like, it wouldn't be a person thing. It would be very much a technical Unless the Bloodline are working in electronics now. And he sent a couple of the cousins.
Installed a faulty air conditioner.
That's how they bring Kilo in. He's like a AC guy and he wears like a boiler suit.
He's tall. He's really tall. He's really tall. That would work. I don't know what's that going to be. I'm going to shout out Wrestling Shizzy, who says F John Cena, F Cody Rhodes, and F CM Punk. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. Good comment.
This is the Positive Wrestling Podcast. But I appreciate it.
I'm going to say F stands for friend. Friend John Cena, friend Cody Rhodes, and friend CM Punk. I'm going with the Bloodline winning, which is against the grain. I want to point out. No one else thinks this. I am going with... I think they have to win. Otherwise, I think they're kind of done as a group. Oh, you came up against the Force and you lost. What good are you? You're crap. It's because Cody Rhodes has beaten Solo Sikoa 700 times. Yeah. So,
I think we can all agree Solo or Cody's getting pinned. Roman and Jacob aren't being touched.
I agree. I agree. Yeah.
It's one of them. Because we've gone so exactly the same, I will say Batman and... I was going to say Robin, but I mean, Batman and Superman are going to win.
Do you know what someone else, I think a group of people have started calling them on the internet? They're calling them the Carney Avengers because they keep politicizing their way to the top of the card. It's like, so good. So
it's not wrong. It's not wrong.
The Carney Avengers. Listen, man. If I get a great Hell in a Cell match and it ends with The Rock, I'm not going to be mad. I'm really not. To me, but again, it could work the other way around, like we said. You could start with the tag match and give me The Rock and then end with CM Punk and Drew, and I'm going to be just as happy. I don't live in a world anymore. I probably did when I was 12 and I'm staying up at 1 a.m. Now, I take everything as chunks anyway, because that's what social media has done to my brain. Yeah. So just give me fun stuff. But it would give us a lot to talk about. But no, that I mean, do you actually even listen? We have gone. No one has told us The Rock is going to be there. We've just decided that it is. What do you think the percentages are? I'm going to go 80-20 that he's going to be there, but I don't know.
I'd have to go the same. What are we basing it on? Is it just the fact that Cody Rhodes spoke about the big guy or something to Pat McAfee and it was just a random...
the fact that it got moved to the main event, the fact that Pat McAfee show they saw the big guys coming back, and the fact that Cody said, oh, there's apparently a big video is going to play and it's going to have huge ramifications for Saudi Arabia. Most people have just gone, it has to have something to do with The Rock, which makes sense, because what else could it possibly be? I don't know what else that we have in our back pocket that could even live up to such a incredible thing. So
it's tough as well, because with the Bloodline, I think Paul Heyman said it at last year's mini, so a year and a half now, where he said we're only in like the second innings of the story.
Maybe the truth.
Maybe we're in the 9th now, and we're thinking, how do we stretch it? Because we're not trying to end it at Mania, are we? We're trying to end it in 2 Manias time in our head. Like, how do we get through these matches? Whereas,
you're right.
You know, in Saudi, maybe Roman beats Cody. Maybe night 1 of day 1 of Netflix Raw, Rock wrestles on that Raw to get a huge pair, and he beats Roman and wins the title. Then night 1 is Roman versus Cody, and the winner faces Rock the next night. And that is the end of the Bloodline, because Roman finally wins as a babyface, Cody turns heel, or whatever they're doing. And it's like this big full circle Roman headlines.
They can't turn Cody heel before the Orton feud. I desperately need Orton as a bad guy and Cody as a good guy.
That could also be in amongst this. So, like, the reason he drops in Saudi, because it could be for Randy. Cody then works Randy right through to Chamber, you know, and then when Rock's now the champ, he wins Chamber. Roman wins the Rumble, goes in the Rumble after losing at Netflix. And then, like we said earlier, so maybe we are actually 6 months from the absolute end of it. And they have to ram in all these matches, and no better place than for them, Saudi Arabia, maybe something in England and something Netflix opening night. And then the first Mania on Netflix, you get the big Roman Rock. But I guess you've already done that. All the matches are done though by Mania, so everything's a rematch. Like Rock Roman's been done because that would have been done on Netflix. Cody Roman's been done. It's only Cody Rock that hasn't been touched. So maybe Cody does beat Roman, and you get Cody Rock.
WrestleMania.
And Cody wins it, and that is the end of the bloodline. He kills the bloodline.
I think that Netflix show is going to be their January pay-per-view. Yeah. In all but name. I think that's the way that they should have The Rock wrestle on it. I mean, they really should. That's what they should do.
Yeah.
Why not? Why not just do Rock versus John Cena? Just do that for no other reason whatsoever. Before we do wrap up, I don't want to spend too long on this, but people keep asking me my thoughts. Have you watched the Vince McMahon documentary?
Yes, I was going to bring this up, that I feel like we have to gloss on it.
Yeah, we have to talk about it. So I've got newfound enjoyment from it because my sister is watching it, and you get hilarious text messages. Hulk Hogan choked a journalist out. You're like, oh yeah, we're nerds. We know all this stuff. So I do understand why it exists more now. The casual fan or someone that knows nothing about wrestling, it does give you an amazing thing.
Yeah.
My two takeaways were, I don't think I can ever enjoy old WWE again. I think that's probably tainted for me for the rest of my days. Too many awful sentences worded, and that Tony Atlas should have his own documentary series because that man will just tell you straight what you want to know. I mean, some of the things that dude said, I was like, oh, thanks, Big T. Appreciate it.
It's tough, isn't it? When I saw who the talking heads were on the doc, and when it got to Tony Atlas, I went, oh no, this hasn't been done by a wrestling person, has it? They think that's a really credible source. And he's turned up in a sleeveless shirt.
Oh man. At least he was honest to what he believed to be true. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. There were some people talking, I'm like, man, what is the point of you even being here? With Tony Atlas is like, listen, I don't know what is true and isn't true, but you think this is true. You don't think you're lying. Yeah. But Vince McMahon is a difficult person. That's the way that I'll phrase it. Like, it's the way he sees the world is not the way that I see the world at all. And of course, as always, just because of all the allegations, yes, of course, nothing is more important than that. That's not what I'm saying. Yeah. That the victims are the most important thing in all of it, but just watching it from a documentary point of view, just not a huge fan of his approach to planet Earth is what I would say.
I must admit, I thought the documentary was obviously started as a let's get everyone up to date with the history of WWE before it comes to Netflix.
Yes,
it turned into
more of a WWE documentary.
And a lot of people say, oh, it's a hit piece. I don't think it was much of a hit piece either. I thought it was fairly honest. I think at some points they actually were quite nice about certain situations and didn't divulge into certain things they could have. And I thought it was a extended version of every DVD we've all watched or seen on the network. So to us, it was nothing new. Some people was. I think it really highlighted, I think growing up, and this is kind of a candid thought, is I loved Vince McMahon growing up. Like, he was kind of my guy because, I want to work with him. I want to do all this stuff. Sure. And as you get older, you start to go, oh, well, and,
well, maybe not. Yeah.
And obviously now what we know, and you're just like, oh man, that sucks for everyone involved, obviously. And then, but watching it, I had this every time they showed the character. I know the kind of thing they were trying to do was Mr. McMahon versus Vince McMahon. When they showed Vince McMahon in like 2000, and he's like in a Hawaiian short sleeve, and I was like so nostalgic, and it was almost upsetting that he's ruined that feeling. Of like,
of course,
why have you got rid of what used to be such a good nostalgic feeling for me? But some of the stuff he said in between, I really thought I knew him from watching stuff, and I clearly have no clue about this guy, as we've learned.
Exactly how I felt. Yeah.
And some of the things he was saying between takes, like we talked about retirement, and at that point you should just die. And I was like, surely he's not, like, I know in wrestling everyone's working, and even he's 80% true with everything he's saying. Other than that, he's working to an extent. Everyone on there was working except for Tony Atlas. They're working something. For example, when Shane's saying when my dad would fight me, he'd dig his fingers in, which my dad definitely would as well. He wouldn't let me win. But I don't think that's necessarily a problem. But there's all these things that people are doing, like Trips going, oh, he wanted to pay-per-view the thing, and I hated it. They all thought they were doing this because they were making a documentary about how ridiculous Mr. McMahon is. So it just adds to the news story that makes you go, oh, he's just bad.
Yeah.
But some of the bits he said between really made, like he said, I have 3 computers. And he said, what the other one thing?
The
He goes,
third one,
it's
I know.
sexual. And I was like, you're 70.
Why would you say it? Yeah,
Yeah.
why would you say it?
Why would
Just
you
don't say it?
But why are you even thinking about that? You're doing a documentary. Like, what's going on? And
Yep.
obviously the abuse he got as a kid, abusers abuse. So there's a sadness to it of like, it doesn't make up for what he's done. But you go, oh, he's a damaged, sick person who damaged people. And
Yep. Spot
that's
on.
the really sad part of the doc, really. But other than that, it was cool to see some of the ridiculous choppy, the pee stuff. Like,
I've been talking about it for 30 years, dude. Like,
Simon, I was like 9 when I watched that, and it still rings true.
it's unbelievable. That was my favorite part of the documentary. We don't use guns, cut to guns. We don't threaten. Cut. It's like, all right, okay. No, I think I that was definitely my takeaway. Is that this is a unwell man who has taken that unwellness and again, like you said, traditional, stereotypical, whatever the right word would be, just repeated the cycle that he went through to other people. But also the other issue is it's a very unreliable documentary. Hulk Hogan saying that he got an immunity deal and then didn't do what they wanted. It's like, that's not how immunity works, bro. They would have locked you up straight away because the immunity deal would have said you have to say this. So, I mean, again, it's Hulk Hogan, blah, blah, blah. I tell you what else annoyed me, actually, and this is the more silly stuff, the shallow stuff, because I agree with your take. I think I could say it better. I don't care how many people went to WrestleMania 3. I don't care. I'm so bored of it. It's either 93,000 or 78,000. Yeah. That's like saying, did you have pizza or cheese on toast? What difference does it make? It's the same damn thing. It's bread and cheese, damn it. Like, man, honestly, it spent like half an episode yelling about, I can't stand it.
Yeah, and also Mania 3, I don't know how they shot it or whatever. It looks like it's 200,000 people. I don't know what.
Why does it look so big?
Yeah, like when I watched All In at Wembley last year, it looked like 60,000 people. No, like it's actually 78. I was like, oh wow, that's really cool. It looks less. And then they showed like 92 like Wembley, and I'm like, that's 900,000 people. Like, why?
It's so true.
There's just people everywhere.
I know it doesn't make sense, but that kind of stuff. And I think the other interesting part to me, and again, I imagine there is some element of show business to it. I do think it gave us the best look into the relationship between Shane McMahon and Vince McMahon. And it actually, I understood why Shane McMahon left. I never really knew. I didn't realize that he tried to seize power. Didn't realize that he was backed off. I knew about the UFC thing, but I didn't realize it was I just thought it was more like, oh, should we go to the shops? Maybe. I didn't realize it was such a deliberate sort of falling out. And tying it into something we'll probably talk about next week. If Shane McMahon does go to AEW, I can understand why he would want to do that.
Yeah, he loves
makes
wrestling.
A lot more. And he wants to listen, man. It's the whole thing. Vince McMahon wanted to prove something to Vince McMahon Sr. Never happened. Shane McMahon wanted to prove something to Vince McMahon. Clearly never happened. So what are you going to do? Chaos. I'm going to run around. I'm going to prove to you wrong, old man. It's the same thing. Yeah. That's the whole part of the documentary. And then you've got Stephanie McMahon off in the corner. Just I don't even know. But
sorry, I was going to say Shane wanted him to buy UFC. He ended up making something better in Raw Underground. And in Raw Underground, if you remember, he was general manager with Daniel Bryan. He was working in backstage segments with Dean Ambrose. He tried to get Marina Shafir in Underground. And all these people are together right now.
Dude, I thought the other day they took that picture for Dynamite. I'm like, they're all ex-WWE guys. Yeah. Now, that means nothing.
They're all Shane era as well. Shane 2016.
That's what I mean. They all have a relationship with him. I hope they don't do that. That's a really bad idea, just for the record. Don't do that. Don't tie it into WWE stories.
Dynamite Underground, I'll definitely watch that.
I would watch it. Listen, I'll do it. If Jay McMahon pops up, I'm going to watch it twice just
Bubba
to boost the numbers.
His name was. It was really good at it. Who was that guy?
He was good. He couldn't do anything else. His name was it's Bubba Tunde. It was Bubba Tunde.
Yeah, he was so good.
He was. No one could beat only at Raw Underground, though. Yeah, only at Raw Underground.
He struggled when he was Commander Aziz.
Oh, dude, that whole gimmick. Oh, my gosh. But yeah, no, I agree with your take. It was a very sad look into what wrestling is, but also gives me hope for what wrestling can be, or WWE can be in the future. It's much better now. So let's learn from all of this. And if anyone is involved, let's get rid of them and let's just tidy it up. Niceness and happiness all the way. Right. On that happy note, everybody, we shall end there. I just double checked. Did anything say anything? No, just people talking about, well, we'll mention it in passing, people talking about the whole Trish Stratus barking like a dog thing. I mean, Trish Stratus defended it. And listen, man, if Trish says it, she has the best voice on it. I don't know whether it came from a please don't say anything bad about it kind of edict from WWE. But with that kind of stuff, if somebody's involved, their opinion is bigger than mine. It's just true. It's like when people mention dead people on television. I don't particularly like it, but if the family have all gone, please do it, their opinion on that is more important than mine because it's their family member and it's their friend. Therefore, I can feel a certain way. So if Trish Stratus truly believes that, then I'm glad because I would hate to think here we are 25 years later and she's completely... And she may be, again, it could be she was told not to say anything. I don't know. But I would rather think that she's okay with it. And for the record, before people take this out of context, never do it again. Should never have done it first time. Never do it. Yeah, never ever do it again. Worst thing ever. But someone did. So go on, man.
So, no, I was going to say that is the one kind of thing from that doc that when they kind of pulled apart those types of bits, I was like, we don't pull apart. Like, I watch Law and Order every day. And I mean, that's on prime time at 8 o'clock in America. There's way worse things than barking like a dog on those things. And it's because they're playing the part. She's an actress. They asked her to play a role of someone who was being kind of, again, because of the realism to what we've learned in the that's what's made it way worse. But he was playing a maniacal millionaire. That's what a horrible billionaire would do in a film, on a GTA game. He was just doing it, and she was playing the part. It's like if you got a part to play EastEnders, but you were like homeless guy. People are like, oh, you shouldn't have played a homeless guy. It's just a part. I'm not homeless. I'm just playing that part.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's all the other stuff that's come into play. I think it just completely... It was like the Harvey Weinstein stuff, isn't it? Yeah, you kind of watch stuff back there and you're like, oh. It's like, oh, no, it's not. This is not as good as it once was. But yes, none of that. I think wrestling's got the right balance now. Let's jab syringes in people's mouths. Let's not do the degrading stuff. I prefer
let's put bags on our heads. Anyway.
I mean it too. I'd rather that than the other stuff. I can handle that. I can't handle the other stuff. The other stuff is horrible.
Me, to be honest. For another day.
I never really address. That's my only problem with AEW right now. I don't want to end like this. So many loose ends. Bryan Danielson doesn't really seem that bothered about it. Like it's just like got murdered. Why don't you care? Anyway, I don't want to get into it. On that note, I appreciate you watching, guys. I know it's going to be in the usual places. I may just put this back on my YouTube channel because my YouTube channel is a joke right now. We'll see what happens. Scott, where can people find you if they want to come yell at you about your opinions?
Oh, no. We're TBA Wrestling on all forms of social media, and we're Gunners Are Us Pod. It's another podcast we do about football. It's also got a TikTok, but make sure you check us out. We're live on TikTok with the Pro Wrestling Podcast, Simon Miller's channel. Make sure you give that a follow because we're live.
That's right.
We're going to be every week. It's just Simon's in different countries. Stuff happens in personal lives. It doesn't always work, but I mean, the future's looking bright for the podcast. I think it's going to come together over winter, and I think we're going to get into a rhythm.
I agree. Okay, look, it's better that I didn't touch it for 2 years, so we're doing much better. Much better than that happened. What is my damn? This may turn off the live. If not, thank you for joining live. I think it's just Simon J Miller. No, it is Simon Miller 316. Yeah, it's both. It's either Simon 316 or Simon J Miller. Both just popped up on my screen. Search for me. You'll find me. For some reason, my profile picture is me with a Punisher top on screaming. No idea why I chose that as my profile picture. Probably because I didn't think I was going to do anything with TikTok. So yeah, absolutely join us. And no matter where you are watching this, be it YouTube, on a podcast app, just rate it 5 stars. Just interact with it as much as you can. That helps hugely. But otherwise, that's it. Enjoy Bad Blood. Make sure you send me your predictions as well so we can see if anyone smashes it out the park. Enjoy what you do on Sunday, and we shall be back some point next week.